Today, we're going deep inside our own heads to talk about something we all experience, the dual driver trap. We're going to navigate the neural civil war that's happening inside your brain, probably even as we speak.
You know, we love to think of ourselves as this one unified person who's totally in charge. But this quote, this gets way, way closer to the messy biological truth. When we talk about listening to your heart versus using your head, that's not just some nice poetic metaphor. It's a real, actual biological conflict, a constant battle for who's in control of your life. So let's do it. Let's step inside that boardroom. We're going to unpack this internal fight, not as some abstract idea, but as a tangible, neurological reality that basically dictates every choice you make every single day. I mean, this has to feel familiar, right? You know the moment. You're sitting in your car, you're just staring at the entrance to the gym, your brain is giving you this perfect, logical argument, you'll feel better, you'll be healthier, you'll be so glad you did it, and yet, some other force inside you just digs in its heels and refuses to move. Or how about this one? That flash of pure rage or panic when you fire off a text message and the second you hit send, your thinking brain suddenly logs on and just screams, "What did you just do?" Okay, so let's reframe this whole thing. If you've ever felt that insane internal split, the first thing you have to understand is this. You are not weak. You are not lazy, and you are not undisciplined. What you're experiencing is a scientifically observable thing called a neural bottleneck. This isn't a character flaw. It's a design feature of the human brain. So why does this bottleneck happen? Well, it's because your brain isn't one single unified computer. It's kind of an evolutionary mismatch. You've got two different drivers fighting for the steering wheel, and they come from completely different eras with totally different agendas. This is the neural civil war. Okay, let's really break this down, because this is the absolute core of the conflict. On one side, you've got the mind, which is your prefrontal cortex. This is the new, shiny, top-of-the-line part of human evolution. It can plan your retirement for 2050, it gets calculus, and it genuinely cares about your long-term goals. But it lives in the same skull as the heart, your limbic system. And the limbic system, for all intents and purposes, is a 3-million-year-old animal. It doesn't care about your savings account. It cares about right now. Are we safe? Do we have food? And can we feel good? Its language isn't logic and facts, it's feelings, urges, and pure instinct. So you have these two fundamentally different systems. But the real reason the animal part wins so often, it isn't just about what it wants, it's about speed. The whole conflict really hinges on the fact that these two systems are running on completely different clocks. Now, check out the math on this, because this is where it gets really wild. A stimulus happens, you see a piece of cake, you get a triggering email. Within just 20 milliseconds, your emotional fast track, that old limbic system, is already reacting. It's screaming, "Eat it," or "fight back." Meanwhile, your logical slow track, your poor prefrontal cortex, takes between 200 and 500 milliseconds just to boot up. That gives your emotional brain a minimum 180 millisecond head start in every single decision. So by the time your rational mind shows up to the party with a nice spreadsheet of pros and cons, the animal has already grabbed the car keys and is halfway down the block. You feel split because you are literally witnessing a high-speed chase inside your own head. And this right here, this lays out the chain reaction that happens every single time. First, the stimulus surge. Then, bam, the immediate fast-track response from your emotional brain. But then, this is where it gets fascinating. A part of your brain we can call the conflict monitor realizes that your two systems are in total disagreement. This creates something called decisional friction, and this friction is physically exhausting. It burns precious calories. So to save energy, your brain makes a brutal, efficient calculation and just pulls the plug on the most expensive system, your logical prefrontal cortex. It's a forced shutdown. The animal wins by default. But the story's not over. Later on, your logical mind wakes up, sees the mess, and because it absolutely cannot stand the idea that it wasn't in charge, it makes up a story to justify what happened. It says, "Oh, well, I deserved that cake. I had a really hard day." Logic didn't make the choice. It's just doing PR for the animal after the fact. So the obvious question is why? Why would evolution design such a seemingly flawed system? Why is our brain so quick to throw logic out the window right when we need it most? Well, the answer comes down to one fundamental principle. It's called metabolic economy. You have to remember, our brain evolved first and foremost as a survival organ, not a thinking organ. Its number one priority above absolutely everything else is to be as energy efficient as possible. And in that context, deep, conscious, logical thought, that's an expensive metabolic luxury. It is not the default. This chart shows you exactly why. Using your limbic system is cheap, it's fast, it's efficient, it's a well-worn superhighway in your brain. But firing up the prefrontal cortex to really think through long-term consequences, that is incredibly taxing. It burns through your brain's limited supply of glucose. This is why you always make the worst, most emotional choices when you're tired or hungry or stressed out. It is not a moral failing. Your brain is just metabolically broke and is defaulting to the cheaper, low-energy option. Willpower isn't a character trait, it's a metabolic resource. So here's the crucial takeaway. From a survival perspective, the friction of being undecided is dangerous. I mean, back in the wild, if you had to logically analyze every rustle in the grass, you got eaten. Fast instinctual action is what kept you alive. So your brain would much rather you act quickly and consistently, even if it's based on pure emotion, than be stuck in a slow, expensive, and confusing state of logical deliberation. It's basically a biological security protocol that just hasn't been updated for a world where the biggest threat isn't a saber-toothed tiger, but a credit card. Okay, so that's the problem. It's a biological setup that really seems stacked against our better judgment. But the good news is, we are not helpless. By understanding the system, we can actually learn to work with it. It's time to move from internal combat to, let's call it neural integration. Let's talk about how to take back the wheel. So let's get practical. Here's your toolkit. First, the 10-10-10 rule. When your heart is screaming for that immediate choice, just pause and force your logical mind to get involved. Ask yourself, what are the consequences of this choice in 10 minutes, in 10 months, in 10 years? Just doing that simple act of looking into the future, is something only the prefrontal cortex can do, so it forces it to come online. Second, metabolic priming. It's so simple but so crucial. Never make a high-stakes decision on an empty stomach. Give your logical brain the literal fuel, the glucose it needs to put up a fair fight. Third, somatic labeling. Instead of getting swept away by a feeling like, I really want this, try describing the physical sensation in technical terms. Say to yourself, I am experiencing a dopamine spike in my chest and a feeling of tension. This act of objective labeling literally shifts brain activity from the emotional limbic system to the analytical prefrontal cortex. You go from being the actor to being the observer. And finally, decision preloading. When you're calm and logical, write a neural script for your future emotional self. For example, if I feel the urge to text my ex, I will immediately call my best friend instead. You're basically creating a pre-approved escape route for when the emotional storm hits, which takes the burden of making a new decision off your future depleted brain. You see, all of these strategies, they all point to this really fundamental shift in perspective. The goal is not to win a war against a part of yourself. The goal is to graduate from being a soldier in the conflict to becoming a wise manager of your own internal boardroom. That 3 million-year-old animal isn't your enemy. It's the source of your drive, your passion, your gut feelings. Trying to suppress it entirely is impossible, and you wouldn't want to anyway. The real path to self-mastery is all about integration. It's about understanding that the animal just needs a leash, a direction that's set by the wiser, more future-oriented part of you. And this, right here, is the final, most powerful takeaway. Your emotional brain and your logical brain, they're just two different consultants. They're looking at the exact same data and giving you conflicting advice. One is obsessed with short-term gains, the other with the long-term vision. Real agency, real control begins the moment you realize that you are not either one of them. You are the CEO. You listen to both, you value both of their inputs, but ultimately, you're the one who decides which check gets signed. The choice is always yours.